What makes an image iconic? How does a man with a lightning bolt on his face become synonymous with rock stardom? And how does a silhouetted man with psychedelic hair define a decade? Today we're going to take a look at these two iconic images, which depict British rock star and avant-garde performer David Bowie and American folk rock singer-songwriter Bob Dylan, and discuss how their most defining visuals reveal a deeper truth about the complex reality of the rock star. Bob Dylan and David Bowie arose in the 60s and 70s, a time of tumultuous change and political unrest in both America and the UK. With controversy growing over the Vietnam War, Nixon's Watergate scandal, and the British Profumo affair, anti-war and anti-government sentiments rose in addition to passions for sexual liberation, civil rights, and drug culture. This energy of rebellious youth was captured by the music of Bob Dylan and David Bowie in their own unique ways. They caused scandal and offense in the face of conservative populations as they grew into their stardom, singing about racial tension and sexuality. As seen in this news special, their nonconformity was not easily accepted.
Bowie's appeal lies in rebellion too, only he must be more outrageous, for public tastes have changed. When he dresses up and plasters his face, the kids of today see it as his way of flaunting convention, and they respect him for it. It's worth wondering, though, what the beat age will spawn next, when someone like David Bowie isn't even freakish enough to shock us anymore.
Now let's break down the important imagery of Bowie's 1973 album cover and Dylan's poster from his 1967 Greatest Hits album to understand why exactly they are so important. Bowie's sixth studio album, Aladdin Sane, came out in 1973, and its 2D cover left a lasting impact on Bowie's legacy and pop culture. This album was developed during Bowie's first American tour, as the emerging new artist was coming into stardom after the success of his previous album Ziggy Stardust, and reflected Bowie's conflict about newly experiencing fame. Overall, it communicates a sense of uncertainty and instability over becoming a rock star, making the declarative statement, "I'm split." Photographed by Brian Duffy, we see Bowie introspectively front and center, eyes closed, head dipped down, and bare as far as the viewer can tell, except for the tear pooled in his clavicle. His deathly pallor keeps the character in the space between life and death, and the airbrushed effect added by makeup artist Pierre Laroche gives an almost illustrative quality to the photo, which causes viewers to doubt reality. The most stunning aspect of this image is the iconic red and blue lightning bolt or flash across Bowie's eyes, which cracks him apart, asymmetrically splitting him into two and creating imbalance across the symmetrical portrait, to reflect the conflict between loving the performance of his role yet fearing the invasive attention of it. It functions as a symbol of division, while working as an icon to allude to a sense of electric energy. This flat 2D shape drastically contrasts with the realism and dimensionality of Bowie's unbearably and intimately human Aladdin Sane, despite the character being an alien. Even the typography of the cover echoes the concept of being split, with the shine of the 50s typeface crystal creating division between the red and blue gradient of the title.
Start swimming or you sink like a stone, or the times they are a-changing.
This 2D poster was designed in 1966 by famous Jewish-American graphic designer Milton Glaser as a bonus insert in Bob Dylan's Greatest Hits album of 1967, a compilation which was released by his label Columbia Records in hopes of sating fans after Dylan's motorcycle accident in 1966 was rumored to be fatal. This illustration depicts Bob Dylan in profile view as an enigmatic and detached black silhouette inspired by Marcel Duchamp's similar self-portrait, functioning as a semiotic icon of Dylan's likeness. The minimalism of his stark profile is juxtaposed by wildly organic and colorfully psychedelic shapes that form Dylan's naturally curly hair, creating movement and rhythmic energy similar to Dylan's music. Glazer's customized typeface for the poster, Baby Teeth, also serves to create contrast in the design with sharp edges and geometric shapes. In addition to the Duchamp portrait, Glazer sought eclectic inspiration for the Dylan poster, including Islamic patterns, the Art Nouveau style, and a sign he found in Mexico in an Italian futurist-style typeface, which was a movement in the 20s to 30s that focused on speed and modernity, much like Dylan called for America to pay attention to the current changes of society. These diverse elements show unity as they work harmoniously to communicate the declarative statement, "This is an icon."
I hear this Robert Zimmerman wrote a song for you about a strange young man called Dylan with a voice like sand and glue.
In such a chaotic time as the 60s and 70s, what Bowie and Dylan with their respective visuals represented to the general public was the right message at the right time. Freedom. Freedom of expression, freedom from conforming to society, freedom from the stress of reality. In Milton Glazer's poster of Bob Dylan, he is said to have captured the zeitgeist of the 60s through Dylan's psychedelic hair, alluding to the escapist and rebellious drug culture of the time. Dylan was an integral symbol of 60s counterculture with his protest music and was easy to connect to through his presentation as the American everyman. The blankness of the silhouette creates an empty placeholder that is able to represent anyone. David Bowie similarly covered topics of protest and rebellion in his music, like how the title song of Aladdin Sane is directly about how one would be Aladdin Sane to volunteer for war. More importantly, the confidently androgynous and theatrical way he presented himself on stage and on the cover of Aladdin Sane was important to queer culture. Bowie's rouged, kabuki-inspired makeup went beyond gender and embraced self-expression. A major difference between the two pieces is how they connect with the viewer. Both pieces focus on the musician and their image, yet Dylan's feels detached and idealized while Bowie's feels intimate. The silhouette of Dylan, turned away from the viewer and devoid of detailed facial features, creates a sense of disconnect between the audience and the visual. In contrast, Bowie's photograph begs to connect with the audience without even making eye contact. He feels grounded and real, ironic that he depicts a character meant to almost caricature the idea of a rock star, while the implication of Dylan in Glazer's poster iconifies the man traditionally known for being an American common man. The negative space surrounding Bowie isolates him, vulnerable in his bareness and unseeing eyes. He is naked and open to the viewer's judgment, attacks, or affection, much like a rock star is to the public. Meanwhile, Dylan's figure and his interaction with the negative space creates the suggestion of a man, closed off and untouchable. By implying that Dylan can be easily recognized by his mere silhouette, Glazer emphasizes the influence and fame of Bob Dylan. Even the medium of these pieces, photography versus illustration, adds a sense of realism and connection to the subject. In addition, the creative process of the Aladdin Sane cover had Bowie's direct input, while Glazer's poster did not have Dylan's. In fact, Dylan was said to have disliked the silhouette and design.
In fact, he hadn't done the album at all. They took all his things, they did the editing, and they made the package. He was really angry at that. And he always hated that, at the end to their relationship. And as far as I know, didn't like the poster very much either.
It's good to remember that the Aladdin Sane image was created at the start of Bowie's rocketing career, while Glazer's image of Bob Dylan was created at his peak. As a whole, putting the images of Aladdin Sane and Glazer's Dylan side by side reflects the life cycle of the rock star. Both pieces came out at an important turning point in the artists' careers. As I mentioned earlier, Bowie was newly adjusting to fame in both Britain and America, while Glazer's poster came out at a sort of comeback period for Dylan. Aladdin Sane ended up being the first album that made it big in America for Bowie, and in the aftermath of his motorcycle accident, Dylan found escape from the growing pressures and burnout of mainstream success. When he returned from recovery, Dylan's music production and touring slowed and he separated himself from Columbia Records, the label which commissioned Glazer to design the poster. In contrast, the Aladdin Sane album cover was part of Bowie's manager's strategy to push his label to promote Bowie into stardom by making it incredibly expensive to produce. Bowie's album cover represents the uncertain beginnings of a rock star, and Dylan's poster represents what happens to an artist when they reach icon status. Eventually, a star must burn out and fade away. David Bowie's Aladdin Sane album cover and Milton Glazer's Dylan poster are important pieces of visual communication in pop culture, and give insight into the struggles of being a rock star. Through their use of negative space, shape, color, and type, these 2D pieces make an important impact on visual history.